If you want to become confident, engaging, and authentic on camera, like your favorite speakers, content creators, and entrepreneurs, I'm going to share with you the 6-stage process that allowed me and thousands of others to go from awkward to confident on camera. It's going to reveal the 3 big mistakes to avoid, as well as the 3 keys to unlock your best on-camera self. The first mistake is talking to camera in a suboptimal state. State is a term that motivational speaker and author Tony Robbins made famous many years ago. By its dictionary definition, state is the particular condition that something or somebody is in at a specific time, and we already know that. In this case, we're referring to state to specifically define somebody's physiological and mental state, which are often very interconnected and even inseparable. Depending on what state you're in, your biochemistry can be completely different. If we're in a positive, passionate state, our brains process completely differently than if we were in a negative or lethargic state. So if you're struggling at talking to camera and you're feeling awkward, stressed, and maybe even not yourself, it's likely that your cortisol level, your stress hormone, is raised, which in turn can make your body and throat feel stiff, anxious, and uneasy. But there's some really good news. The magic here is that we can voluntarily change our state in just a couple of minutes by changing our physiology. This is best illustrated by the famous power posture study they did at Harvard, where they had participants hold their bodies in certain postures for a minute and measured their hormones before and after. Participants who held their bodies in powerful, open, and upright positions increased testosterone and decreased cortisol. Participants who embodied low power positions, such as slouching and making themselves smaller, increased their level of cortisol, their stress hormone, dramatically. More importantly than any increase in testosterone, the participants who held the powerful open positions were 33% more likely to take risks. So it comes down to this: would you have more on-camera confidence if you were excited to engage with the world and take positive risks, or if you felt stressed, anxious, and small? This is why this is the very first talking to camera mistake. You could be massively sabotaging yourself if you are talking to camera in a suboptimal state. So to avoid you just hitting your head against the wall, you have to have this covered first, and I'm going to be sharing with you some specific exercises that help optimize your state later in the video. The second mistake is letting the fear of judgment affect you too deeply. The fear of judgment is a common psychological response in social situations. When triggered, a part of the brain called the amygdala activates the fight or flight response. Whilst talking to camera isn't strictly a social situation, part of the reason why it can be so paralyzing is that it's so easy to feel like everyone is watching you. Even though this fear is irrational, it can feel like you're talking to a potentially infinite number of strangers who will come with their potential judgments and opinions. Now, this activation of the amygdala and the fight or flight response leads to physical symptoms such as sweating, trembling, and a racing heart, which can further increase self-consciousness and fear. And this is further compounded and made worse by cognitive distortions such as mind reading, assuming others are judging you negatively, and the illusion of transparency, which is where people tend to overestimate how much their anxiety is visible to others. Ultimately, the fear of judgment can be paralyzing, and it massively disrupts the ability to get into a flow state, which is where you're fully immersed in the task at hand. This disruption makes it really difficult to deliver content in an authentic, relaxed, and engaging way because the fear of negative evaluation looms all too large. The third mistake is having the goal, whether it be conscious or subconscious, of being perfect. This is where you try to avoid all criticism by avoiding saying or doing anything that you could be criticized for. Whilst this is common, of course, when you actually think about it, pleasing literally everyone is a completely ridiculous idea. It's actually possible that being disliked by some people is actually a good sign. As Ichiro Kishimi says in his book, The Courage to Be Disliked, being disliked by somebody is proof that you are exercising your freedom and living in freedom, and a sign that you are living in accordance with your own principles. Now, whilst that's a good aim to have, to be able to get closer to having more indifference of if people like you or not, it's not completely necessary for when we talk to camera. The real problem comes when you're trying to be perfect to the extent that it's actually debilitating your ability to talk to camera well. You try, for example, to completely avoid saying or moving your hands in a certain way to avoid potentially doing anything weird that you might be criticized for. And this does the opposite of giving off the polished vibe that you're looking for. Instead, it'll often make you feel robotic, and it will prevent you from having an authentic and relaxed vibe. So is the solution here to just let go and fully be yourself, even if it's your first time talking on camera? Well, not necessarily. Your delivery is likely going to be full of verbal tics, such as like, kind of, and your energy might be scattered, losing a train of thought, and be a little bit all over the place. So this begs the question, how can you be fully yourself, to be authentic and deliver to camera freely, whilst not having those verbal tics and having your thoughts together to be able to deliver efficiently and effectively? You need specific, focused practice. And that brings me on to my big aha moment and the first key. Key number one is separating practice from product. Just because you're talking to camera doesn't mean that anyone else has to actually see it. You can practice as much as you want before you actually put yourself out there. Importantly, this means you can isolate a specific part of your talking to camera skill set and work on it and not actually show anyone. You can keep doing that in different areas before you get better. For example, you can talk to camera with the sole intention of not saying So you can go robot mode for a while, really focus on not saying be robotic, make a video that's obviously not engaging and that you wouldn't actually show anyone. And then once you're saying or less, then you can bring back a bit of freedom, a bit of authenticity, and a bit of the vibe that you want to transmit to your audience. The great news here is that if you're a newbie, you're going to see a ton of improvements with only a little bit of effort. Okay, but this begs the question, what drills should you actually do? Well, we've built a 30-day framework of specific exercises called the 30-Day Talking on Camera Challenge. So far, we've had thousands of members go through our Talking to Camera programs, and it's been inspiring to see so many people in our community grow their confidence on camera by using this process. If you'd like more info, feel free to check out the link in the description. The second key is that realizing that talking to camera is a place to explore yourself and not judge yourself. The beautiful and exciting thing about talking to camera is that you can use it to be whoever you want to be and express and explore parts of yourself that you don't necessarily show in most social situations. You see, whilst authenticity is a great goal to have, we will have certain behaviors when we're around family, certain different behaviors when we're around friends and colleagues, etc., etc. There's also a person you are on camera, and you just need to figure that out. You've had a lot of practice in being the person that you are around the people you love most, so you just need to practice being who you are when you are on camera. With time, this gets much easier. The solution to the thought that people are going to think I'm stupid or weird is that in reality, there is zero judgment from anyone and you're in complete control. And this is because you are probably by yourself in a room with the camera and you can say whatever you want, delete it if you don't want to put it out there, and post it if you do want. So right there in the room where you are, no one's watching you, there is no judgment. Also, by simply understanding that fight or flight response we mentioned earlier is a completely natural and biological process. It's actually designed to keep us safe. By just knowing that and knowing that, all right, this is the fight or flight response, awesome, that can help mitigate its effects just by being conscious of it. It's also very helpful to realize that you may have bought into this illusion of transparency where you think that your audience is hyper aware of how nervous you are and they're going to kind of see through whatever you're trying to put on. Because that's a typical cognitive illusion, it's much less likely that they're going to notice any of your nerves or anxiety than you think. So now it's time to talk to camera. The first few times you do it, you might notice that there's a slight dissonance or a big dissonance between who you want to be on camera and who you are now. You might right now be awkward, shy, not very fluent with your words, and who you want to be is somebody who's confident, engaging, relaxed, and you. Instead of letting this dissonance affect you negatively and even cause you to give up, realize that you're not there yet and get excited that this is a growth opportunity. This isn't going to happen straight away, so let's get better every day. The third key and the big aha moment for me was that if I optimized my state before talking to camera, it was like a cheat code. When I was first trying to talk to camera, coincidentally, I was also reading a Tony Robbins book. And in the book, he talked about this concept of state, about getting into this optimized state. So the thought occurred to me, why not do this before talking to camera? So I did a state boosting exercise, talked to camera, and that video was significantly better than any video I had made before. So I've been doing this before I talk to camera ever since. It's been like 10 years. And in those 10 years, I've developed better and better and better, more and more efficient state boosting exercises that are pretty simple, but work really well when it comes to talking to camera. If you'd like to try this, I have a 3-minute follow along sequence that is on my YouTube channel. You can find that video in the description. Go ahead and do that next time before you talk to camera and let me know the results in the comments below this video. If you can make the mindset and behavior shifts that I outlined in this video, you're going to be well on your way to eliminating awkwardness and finding a sense of authenticity and confidence when you talk to camera. I'll see you in the next video.